Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Drury Show. On today's episode, Monday, May 11th, 2026, we've got a jam-packed episode for you on tap today. We're going to talk about the MLB. It's getting off to the races, some MLB surprises. We're going to talk about playoff pressure in the NBA, and we're going to talk about the road to college football. We're about 3.5, 4 months out from the season, and it's all powered by BTN Insights. So without further ado, this is the Drury Show, and I'm Drury, so don't go anywhere. And we are here. It's May 11th. We've got a jam-packed show, as I said in the open. I'm your host, Drury, alongside my co-host, James Patchett, on a lovely day in the Career Center, Columbia Area Career Center broadcast studios. Drury Show is presented by BTN Insights, your home for sports rankings, analytics, and weekly insight across every single sport. James, how are you doing here today?
I'm doing good. Excited. Let's do this.
Now, we're going to talk about the NBA playoff, some of the chaos, stuff going on. There's a lot to talk about there for our fans. We're going to talk about some MLB contenders, teams that are separating themselves among the field. And we're going to talk about some early college football rankings and some early playoff predictions. And maybe we'll talk a little bit about the 2014 playoff that just got approved by the NCAA. It's still under a little bit of speculation, but we'll get into that on today's episode. And don't worry, all throughout the episode, we'll check the latest BTN Insights to check up to date, making sure everything is up to date. And for the users and listeners for the viewers and listeners at home, you can check out these rankings that we talk about as well. Just go to btn-insights.com/this-week's rankings, and you can go check them out. Go check out that link and see the rankings for yourself.
Go check it out.
Today's episode is brought to you by BTN Insights. BTN Insights is a sports analytics and rankings platform covering everything from college football to pro sports, with weekly rankings, performance tracking, and deeper analysis than the standard polls. Whether you're debating playoff teams like we'll do today, ranking contenders, or looking for data-backed takes, BTN Insights gives fans a smarter way to follow sports. So after that, the Knicks are rolling right now. They just swept them. They just swept the Sixers like it was nobody's business, just taking up,
took over the Phillies arena.
Barely a hurdle. It was not challenging whatsoever, and that was a big game for the Knicks in a big series. Now, Jalen Brunson is emerging as a superstar up until this point. James, what do we think about Jalen Brunson? Up until this point, he kind of got out of the gates a little bit rough in his first couple years of his career, but now he's really coming into his own, and it helps that the Knicks have formed a good team around him. What do we think about Brunson?
I think he's a good player. I think he might be top 10 in the league, Like you said, first couple years, didn't get to see his full potential because he was behind Luka on the Mavericks, got traded. Knicks invested a lot in him, and he's risen up to the standard, playing very solid. And now this is back-to-back years where, he's the main guy leading his team to the Eastern Conference Finals. So the Knicks going all in on Jalen Brunson has paid off, and it's been a good move.
Yeah, it has been great for the Knicks. They beat, I believe it was who do they play in the first round?
Hawks.
They played the Hawks in the first round, the 1-6. That gave them a little bit of a challenge, but the Sixers were coming off of a lot of momentum after they come back and beat the Celtics, something they haven't really done in the playoffs before.
No.
And they were just stopped in their tracks. Knicks stopped that momentum, and now they're going with some momentum on their own. They have a very good depth. They're a pretty deep team to a certain extent. They have players like Tyler Kolek coming in. It's barbecue chicken when he comes in, as he likes to say.
Barbecue chicken.
And do you think they have championship-level depth? They're in the East. They're on a crash course to play the Pistons in the Eastern Conference Finals, which some people are saying the East is, it's always been the Eastern Conference pretty much. But do you think that the Knicks have a chance of being the best team out of the East? And a caveat to that, a second part to that is, what do you think is their potential to beating whatever team comes out of the West, whether it be the Spurs or the Thunder?
Yeah, I think they do have a chance to make it to the NBA Finals. And I think it's very high. They're going to be able to rest here after getting this sweep of the 76ers. So they're going to have rest time. they're gonna play, and the fans travel for the Knicks, and Madison Square Garden's gonna be popping. It's a real. I think it's probably one of the biggest advantages right now in basketball is having like Madison Square Garden, like, cause it makes a difference. It's like playing in a college arena. It's loud. It's fun. They're jumping around. It's crazy. So yeah, I think the Knicks have a very solid chance. They're playing team ball. They're sharing the ball well. I seen where Karl Anthony Towns almost averaging like 8 assists. He's like they're really moving the ball at a high level. They're scoring, and their defense has really gotten better throughout the year. And they're playing good defense right now. They were shutting down the 76ers. I don't even know if they scored over 110 points one game in that series. Correct me if I'm wrong. So the Knicks are playing very good basketball right now, and they're winning by large margins. So this is a team, yes, that is playing the best at this point in the season, and they can for sure make a run. Do I think they'll win the whole thing? I don't think so, but they have a good chance to.
Yeah, and another big game we had last night was the matchup between the Spurs and the Timberwolves. Now, game one, the Timberwolves come out on top. They win 104-102 in a very close game. And we kind of thought, oh, this is going to be a very competitive series. And then the next two games do not go the Wolves' way. Spurs were pretty much able to do whatever they wanted to do, and they don't win those games. Now, last night we saw Anthony Edwards absolutely take over. And I'm pulling up, as we speak, the latest odds for the game tonight, or I guess tomorrow night, between the Spurs and the Timberwolves. And the game last night was favoring the Spurs by 15 points. And what I want to talk about is the Spurs, the Spurs minus 15, which makes sense based on how the past two games have seen. And what I want to talk about is the reliance on Victor Wembanyama. We see Victor Wembanyama, he gets ejected for the first time in his career, and the Spurs lose that game. Now, James, what do you think is the value? Obviously, we know Victor Wembanyama is one of the biggest franchise players in the league, but what do you think is his true value for the Spurs?
I think he has the most value of any player on any team, in my opinion. Because if you take a dude like Shea off OKC, I think they're still very well rounded. They can still score the ball at a high enough level, and their defense is very elite, which is like people don't talk about that. That's why they're such an elite team, is because of their defense. But like the whole game plan against the Spurs is to go to Wemby. Every time he touches the ball, you want to double him. You don't want him to get offensive boards. He's really the main focus. So you see when he gets ejected, the Wolves can come back in the fourth quarter like that. Do I think, the Spurs could win a game against the Wolves without Wemby? Yes, but considering the whole game plan goes to him, that makes him such a big influence on the game. So when he gets ejected like that, you don't got to worry about him. You can get easier shots in the paint. You don't got to chuck up threes, being scared to go in the paint when you have a dude that's 7'5" down there with being an elite level shot blocker. So I really do think the Wolves won last night because Wemby got ejected, and he just makes it easier for the Wolves. And Anthony Edwards got that dog in him. 36 points, 15 in the fourth quarter to come back and win. Very impressive performance by him.
And my mic is muted. Yes, it was. It was a very impressive performance for the Timberwolves last night. But I do want to talk a little bit about this, is that Anthony Edwards is on a tear right now. In his past 5 games, last night he had 36 points in 40 minutes. The night before, he had 32 in 41 minutes. In game 3, he had, In game 3, he had 12, or I guess that's game 2. In game 2, he only had 12 points in 24 minutes in an absolute blowout loss. And then game 1, he had 18 points in only 25 minutes. And then the game before, he only had 5. So he's looking really, really good. He's been playing good right now. The Timberwolves are firing. They're coming back. It's a tie series. It's a 0-0 series at this point, technically. If you're thinking philosophically for both of these teams.
Yeah.
And Anthony Edwards, what do you think? Last talking point before we move on to the rest of the show. But what is Anthony Edwards' potential in the playoffs this year? How far do you think he can take the Timberwolves? And I guess the easier question is, do you see this going to 7 games, or to do the Spurs end it in 6?
I think it can go to 7 games. I think the Spurs will end up winning because I think the Wolves aren't good enough.
Mm-hmm.
I think they need so much out of Anthony Edwards on a night-to-night basis, dropping over 30 points for them to win, and him playing elite defense. So, and I don't think, as good as he is, not every superstar is going to provide over 30 a night in the playoffs when you're the main focus. So, with that reason, I think the Spurs will end up winning this series. But if Anthony Edwards can get this series win, it's a big mark on his legacy. It's just all around. He's a great player, and this would be a huge to take a team like this of this caliber of the Wolves after beating the Nuggets, excuse me, and then being able to beat the Spurs. It would be a very impressive to take a team like that, which means I think the Wolves are maybe without Dante DiVincenzo, that would also be huge in my opinion.
Mm-hmm. Okay, closing talk. Who's the NBA champion? Now, I'm looking at the BTN Insights rankings right now. Oklahoma City Thunder has a over 12, almost 12 and a half point lead on the Spurs in the rankings between 1 and 2. And then the gap between 2 to 3 is also 13 points between the Spurs and the Pistons. But what are you doing, James? But who is your pick right now to win the NBA Finals?
I want the Spurs to win it. I think they have a very high chance to do it. But I'm going to say the Thunder win. Their defense is very good. And I just believe that in a 7-game series, I think they'll get it done over any other team in the NBA. So I'm going to say Spurs are going to repeat champions for the first time in almost since the Warriors did it.
The Spurs repeat it?
No, Thunder.
The Thunder.
Sorry, excuse me. The Thunder are going to be repeat champions this year for the first time since the Golden State Warriors. So yeah, I think the Thunder are going to get it done.
All right, and that is all for today's talk of the NBA. Moving on to the MLB, had a little bit of a brain fart there. Now, moving on to the MLB, we're going to talk about some of the best teams in the league right now. We've got the Los Angeles Dodgers, the New York Yankees, and the Atlanta Braves. And 2 teams I want to throw into there are the Tampa Bay Rays and the Chicago Cubs, who have both been playing great baseball. The Rays are atop the MLB in the BTN rankings at 88.9 is their score, and the Chicago Cubs are just behind them at 83.7, and third is the Atlanta Braves, fourth is the Yankees, and then 5 is the Milwaukee Brewers, and then Los Angeles sits at 6. Now, what is your kind of state of the MLB right now? Keep it short and concise, but what do you think about the league so far?
I think I think you gotta take things with a grain of salt and not get too overhyped about these early season reactions, because things can change and injuries can happen throughout the year. But I do like these teams' depth. I did see where Blake Snell is back in pitching for the Dodgers, so that's a good add. He was injured at the beginning of the season. I'm pretty sure he had elbow inflammation, if I'm not I'm pretty sure that's right. So yeah, teams can get back players can get injured. Not everything's for certain. By the end of the year, you'll see the standings be different. I remember the Brewers last year started off kind of slow, and then by the end of the year were the number 1 team in the NL, maybe even had the best record in baseball. So things can change and things will happen. So take everything with, kind of a grain of salt, and just hope your team doesn't go through injuries and you want your team to stay consistent.
Yes, that is true. Now, in that top 5, if you had to, I can read it off again, but the top 5 is Rays, Cubs, Braves, Yankees, and then the Brewers. If you had to change anything there or move up a team into that top 5 spot, where would you be putting anyone?
If I had to change a team, I think I would put the Cubs as the number 1 team because they're the hottest team in baseball right now.
Mhm.
I mean,
They're 2. So you would move them in the number 1?
I think I would switch them with the Rays. I know they're 2, but I think they're the best team in baseball right now. And as a Cardinals fan, it's hard for me to say that, but the way they're playing, they're very balanced. Got a great pitching staff. They throw strikes. They play defense. You got PCA in the outfield, top of the league and outs above average. It's a very good team, top to bottom. So I think I'd move them to number 1. And I noticed the Padres or Cardinals aren't in the top 5. I think those are 2 teams that are playing really good baseball right now, hitting the ball well, pitching. Cardinals surprisingly have pitched. Their pitching staff's been really good this year. Dustin May's been good. A couple rough starts to start the year, but he's been really good. Michael McGreevy's been really, really good all year. So those are a couple teams, you could mix into the top 5 in my opinion.
Yes. That's a great point. Yes, the Cardinals are sitting at 7th. No, the Cardinals are at 8, and the Padres are at 7, and they are about 0.2 points away from each other in the rankings up until this point in the MLB season, which is still young. The Cardinals have played 40 games up until this point, sitting at 23 and 17 as they lose the last 2 games of the series against the Padres.
Drama from coast to coast today. 3 walk-offs, 3 massive wins. In Milwaukee, the Brewers
pulled
off a shocker.
Excuse me. ESPN going off on the browser. Okay, moving on to another couple topics in the MLB. The biggest MLB surprises up until this year. Now we can talk about the Cubs have really resurged. They've had a resurgence. PCA's playing well. We've had some really good young pitching across the league. We've seen players like Chris Sale, who's taken control over the league up until this point in play, but we've also seen some younger pitchers taking the helm. And then also, if you had to pick, we're going to start with this. If you had to pick one lineup that, as a pitcher yourself, you would be the most scared to face, which lineup in the MLB would you pick?
I think it's pretty obvious. I picked the Dodgers because of their firepower. And recently, they have not been hitting good, which is surprising. Shohei's kind of taken a step back this year. I think it's because of the pitching. But still, in the playoffs, if I'm running into a team, I really don't want to run into the Dodgers. This is a team that has so much firepower. No 1-run lead, 2-run lead is safe against this team going in to the 8th or 9th inning because any one of their players will just mash a home run. All their players have almost 30 home run plus upside. So, yeah, that's a lineup I would not want to face.
Yes, that's a great pick. Great pick. Now we've seen a lot of teams, I would say, MLB rankings, some teams in the BTN, some teams that I'm surprised to look at in 10th are the Oakland Athletics. They're sitting at 18-18. I believe that is their record up until this point in the season. And they had a pretty rough season last year, but they're holding steady in the top quadrant, or I guess in the top third of baseball. And they face off against the Cardinals, or they are 21-19, excuse me, not 18-18. There have been some game mishaps with that. But what are your thoughts on the A's? And if you had to pick a team that's maybe underperforming a little bit, what would you pick and what would you say about them?
So you're asking me to pick a team that's been underperforming?
Yes.
I'm gonna pick the Phillies. Because their start of the year was absolutely terrible. They were one of the worst teams in baseball. They were 9-19 to start the year, and they're climbing back up to 500. But this is a team with so much firepower. This is a team that should be in the playoffs, be a top 3 team in the NL, in my opinion, with dudes like Bryce Harper, Schwarber, who's top in home runs right now in the league, Trey Turner, Justin Crawford's coming on as JJ Crawford. son of Justin Crawford, coming on, playing center field, really good defense. So, and this is a team with a really good pitching staff. So it's kind of underwhelming this year, the way they've started. Also, another team I'd say is the Mets. Of course, we all know the Mets have struggled a lot this year. This is a team that also went out and spent money these past couple years. Spent a lot of money on Juan Soto. Spent a lot of money on Bo Bichette. Bo Bichette especially really struggling. Now you got Lindor on the 10-day IL. So this is not good for a team that also has a lot of firepower.
Yes. Yes, indeed. Now, the last talking point I want to discuss in the MLB is there have been some close standings in the home run ranks of the MLB. But if you had to pick, obviously we've talked about it a lot. Early season success does not always translate to success in later in the season and later on into October. But if you had to pick one hitter up until this point in the season that you've liked what they're hitting, you've liked how they've hitting, and moving on to the end of the season, and you think they have the best potential to have a successful play down the stretch, who would you pick and what do you think about them?
I'm gonna say a couple guys here. I think actually I'm gonna say more than a couple guys. I'm gonna throw out a few. Mike Trout, who's been injured in past years, is healthy and hitting really good. That's one I want to see healthy and perform later down the year. And yeah, I hope he ends up winning a World Series. Another guy is Yordan Alvarez, who's been mashing the ball, absolutely mashing the ball. He's a guy that I would believe in having a strong season and could be up for that MVP. You know, a lot of people haven't taken it from Judge the past couple of years, so he's a guy. And then Moritaki Mor, I don't more. I don't know how to say his name.
The South Side Samurai, as
Yeah.
people like to say.
Moritaki Murakami has been absolutely mashing the ball, and this is a dude that had concerns that he couldn't hit fast pitching in the offseason. Not many teams wanted to sign him because of that. White Sox took a chance on him, and he's like top 3 in home runs right now, hitting really solid. So that's a guy that a lot of people made a mistake passing on. So I would say him also.
All right, with that being said, that's all the talk we have for the MLB today. But a quick reminder that the Ben Drury Show is powered by BTN Insights. One thing that makes BTN Insights different is that it's sport agnostic, meaning you can follow rankings and analytics across multiple sports all in one place instead of bouncing between multiple different sites. From NBA playoff momentum to MLB movement rankings to college football projections, BTN Insights keeps everything in one ecosystem. James, before we move on, what is your favorite BTN Insights feature?
I just like the rankings. I like being able to look at it every week and comparing it to maybe power rankings or the AP top 10 or AP top 25 for football. So I like going through the rankings and judging them and giving you crap about it.
Okay, and now our final topic of the day. We're going to get into a little bit too early college football preview and 3 early CFP favorites to win the title. We've got the Ohio State Buckeyes, the Oregon Ducks, the Georgia Bulldogs. Maybe we can throw in Texas, Notre Dame. Out of those, who do you think deserves the preseason number 1? Which team has the best QB situation? And what team do you like? What team is your go-to down the season? Obviously, being a Mizzou fan, it's going to be a little bit different. But what are you thinking?
I think Ohio State's gonna be number 1. They should have been last year, and with all those players they're returning, I think they'll be number 1. I don't think they'll put Oregon at number 1 or Notre Dame. Those are a couple other teams that I think they could put at number 1, but just the recent success of Ohio State returning Julian Sain, Jeremiah Smith, 5-star Chris Henry coming in. This is a very loaded offense. Bo Jackson returning. This at running back, this is a loaded offense. I think they'll be number 1. Matt Patricia was very good as defensive coordinator last year. Best QB situation, I'm going to go with Texas. I think Arch Manning is QB1. Again, I know his hype was like crazy at the beginning of the year, didn't perform, but I watched his last couple of games. His game against Texas A&M when they got that upset. They played Michigan in the bowl game. He went off that game. His play down the end of the stretch last year, very, very impressive. He has very solid mechanics. If his accuracy can come along, this is a very dangerous QB. And adding Kevin Coleman is going to be, not Kevin Coleman, he played for Missouri. Cam Coleman, transfer from Auburn, the best wide receiver in the portal class, this is gonna be a scary duo with Ryan Wingo alongside of them. It's another very scary offense. And I like Texas. I'm gonna ride with Arch Manning. I think Texas is gonna win the national championship. I'm a free fire right now. I think Steve Sarkisian's gonna get it done this year. I think Arch Manning's gonna win the national championship. I think he's gonna have a little Joe Burrow in him. I remember when Joe Burrow struggled, kind of played better towards the end of the year. LSU missed the playoff. They were like all right, they were decent. Joe Burrow came back the next year, absolutely torched the league, won the national championship, #1 overall pick. I think Arch Manning can do the same thing, in my opinion. So yeah, I think that's what's gonna happen. I think Arch Manning and Texas Longhorns are gonna win it all, but another team I wouldn't sleep on is Notre Dame returning CJ Carr. I think he's very slept on quarterback also.
Yes, I like that take a lot. Now, see what we're going to talk about next. Moving into the season upcoming, we have some of the first, the new week 1 not MLB, college football lines are not yet out, so we're not going to talk about those two. We'll talk about it a little bit closer as they get going. But the CFP, the new 2014 field, what are your thoughts on it? What do you think about it? There's some new auto bid logic, things like that. But what are we thinking about the system? A lot of people are really frustrated. I know how I feel about it. But what do you think about it, James?
I think it's super dumb. I think we do not need 24 teams in a playoff, letting group of 5 teams get in. That's too many. That's going to make for super lopsided games if you have a top 10 team playing the 24th best team in the nation or a top 5 team playing a G5 school. It's so lopsided. It will just make for bad games. I want the best of the best playing in the top 8. I want the best of the best. I don't want G5 schools if they're not caliber enough. If you want to be a G5 school and you want to get in, win your conference and beat a SEC school non-conference. Go and play them. Pay them to play you if you want to.
Yeah.
If you really want to get in, do that. But I want to see the best of the best. I'm tired of these G5 schools. We do not need 24 teams. It is really dumb.
A lot of people are talking about just getting rid of conference championships altogether. What are your thoughts on that move?
I think that's so dumb also. I want to see a team win your own conference. I think that's a cool accomplishment. And you're not just going to throw that out the window. You get a trophy for that. That's an accomplishment. And you get a bid into the college football playoff for that. So why are we throwing that away? That's dumb. I want to see the best of the best. The weekend before the college football playoff schedule comes out, I want to see the best of the best teams from every conference playing. So I think it's dumb. They should definitely keep conference championships.
Now, with that being said, that's the last part of our show. But before we get out of here, we're going to close off with a rapid fire segment. James, what are your thoughts on the NBA Finals? I want you to give your quick fire NBA Finals prediction to close out today's episode of the Ben Drury Show.
Thunder versus Pistons in the finals. Thunder in 6.
Okay, now moving on to another major sport, the MLB. This is far off, but here as we sit pre-summer on May 11th, what's your MLB World Series prediction? If you don't have a winner up until this point, I guess it could be a couple teams, but who are we looking at? Who's going to be possibly holding up that trophy come the end of October?
I'm going to go big dogs. I'm going to go Dodgers, Yankees, and I'm throw a sleeper in there, and I'm going to say the Cubs.
Okay, college football. Who is the most overrated college football team up until this point going into this season? Who's probably going to be receiving a lot of hype in the AP poll and most likely will have a performance like Penn State last year, who was the preseason top 5 and then finished barely with a bowl eligibility.
I'm gonna go with a hot take here, and I'm gonna say I was gonna say Oregon, but I think that's a bad take. I don't really know, to be honest. I can't give you an answer right now.
Okay.
Oh, actually, you know what? Ole Miss. I'm gonna say Ole Miss is gonna be an overhyped team.
Okay. Then the last question of the day. Who is one athlete? If you're sitting in a front office right now, it could be any sport. Who is one athlete that you would choose to start a franchise with today? You leave this classroom, get unlimited budget, but you can only get one player to start a franchise with. Who are you picking?
I would say Mahomes, but off the ACL tear, I'm gonna say no. I'm thinking like football. But if I'm gonna go with basketball. I'm gonna start a franchise with Victor Wembanyama. I think his value is the most.
And with that being said, that's all we have for today's episode of the Ben Drury Show. For James Patchett, thank you so much for coming on to today's episode. I'm Ben Drury signing off live from the CACC broadcast studios. This has been the Ben Drury Show, presented to you by btninsights.com. Make sure to check out the website right now, btn-insights.com. Thank you so much for listening, for watching. Have a good day. God bless.